All right, this video is for the let's say the fair weather, or how you ever want to say that, Pistons fan that you're with them when they're winning, yet you're skeptical about being with them when they're rebuilding to be a winner. The process that is here. This is my. I want to say this is my advocacy, or you could say me being an advocate for Troy Weaver and as well as Monty Williams, and why this is actually going according towards plan, not going according towards unrealistic expectations. Okay, is it safe to say the Pistons is not Orlando and it's not OKC? All right. Well, the structure from, let's say it this way: which franchise would you prefer to have at this? I'm gonna give you a scenario of the choice of three. Orlando right where it is, Houston right where it is, OKC right where it is, or when Joe Dumars was actually winning with the team. Which situation would you prefer to have? Now, for that individual that would say, well, our situation is not the Joe Dumars situation. Actually, it is. If you go back to when Joe Dumars first took office, this is what he had to endure. He had to go through this process. He had to go through this process. Now, the reason why the Pistons fans don't care for it because they're looking at other teams, and that's why I would call them fair weather. You're you're only good as when things are going good for you or things are going likely. That's why you compare the Pistons to the Lions, or you try to say that the Pistons should be more like the Lions. You wasn't saying that when the Lions were losing. The Lions team is the same team that it was up under Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. It's the same team. How do I say that and why do I say that? How do I say that is because the offensive line is still the same offensive line. The only addition that they have made was Sewell. That's the only addition. Everything else. Now, if you want to say Glasgow, who drafted Glasgow? That was who? Who drafted him? Bob Quinn. Everything else is Bob Quinn. So you was able to build off of that. But look how long it took for Bob Quinn to get to the offensive line. He had to go through another retooling of, let's say, the gentleman that came from Baltimore, the left guard, and then he also brought in T.J. Lang, and I want to say it was someone else that he brought in here. So it took him a little time for him to build up the offensive line. But once Ragnar was established, everything else fell into place. You got the Jonah Jacksons, you got the Halapalooza Vites. Decker was already there, but Decker was pretty much, for a lot of the fans here, they was pushing him out because they would say he was too inconsistent. Very specifically when especially when he played against the Vikings, he was exposed. So they pretty much washed him out. With that being said, the moment they got Ragnar and he became an All Pro, that's when you was able to build off of that, and now you have the success that you have. It's not off of Brad Holmes or Dan Campbell. It's off of that offensive line. The offensive line was actually a top 10 offensive line up under Patricia. Up under Patricia. That's without Sewell. That's without Sewell. There was already a top 10 offensive line. So you get Sewell, now you go to a top 5 or better. Anyway, so Brad Holt, that whole thing. Anyway, that's me comparing. They're doing that the whole thing comparison the Lions with the Pistons. So going back to the Pistons situation. Right now, the Pistons they have 3 men on base, and they up at bat. They got no strikes, no balls, and the count is a open count. And they up at bat, and they can go so many different directions. And this is why I'm an advocate for what Troy Weaver has done. The reason why I'm an advocate for Troy Weaver, what he has done, do the fans understand? No, let the fans. Do the media, the local media. I mean, the high-rated local media, the one, not just the ones who have the hit wonder podcasts And I'm talking about the local radio stations, etc. Y'all come hard on Troy Weaver. Y'all come hard on Troy Weaver, hard on Monty Williams. And this, and then in the midst of all you coming hard on them, and you want to immediately go to the results, which is fair in this line of work. And yet at the same time, I haven't heard no one to put this in consideration. When Troy Weaver took office, when Monty Williams took the team, what did they have to build off of? When Dan Campbell, no, forgive me, when Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell took office, what did they have to build off with? They had Matthew Stafford and an offensive line. Matthew Stafford and an offensive line. Matthew Stafford decided to leave. All right, you wash that out. You still have an offensive line. Even if you don't go after golf, you have an offensive line. You still go according to the plan. You go after you continue to build or strengthen the offensive line, which they did with Sewell. Everything else is filling in the gaps. Everything else is filling. Everything else was a bonus. Everything else was a bonus. You could say it's shrewd GM, talent evaluation by Holmes, and you could say that all you would like. None of that is even possible without that offensive line. So, comparing that to the Pistons, when I started off right. When Troy Weaver took this team, what did they have to build off with? I mean, there's something that you can, as a foundation piece that you could build off. Go ahead and say Drummond. Oh, he was gone. Who do you have? Give me something that you have. Now, when he turned nothing into 3 first-round draft picks, everybody was all team Troy Weaver. All right. The next year, they built off of that because it was bad the next year. So they was able to get another crop of I think want to say 2 first-rounders. All right. So the problem with the fans or the local media, they would say, well, the process is not fast enough. This is why I would say, which situation would you prefer to have? The OKC, Orlando, Houston situation, or the Joe Dumars when it was winning situation? Which one you prefer to have? OKC, Houston, Orlando is nowhere near the Joe Dumars situation. Now, why do I bring that up? Because how the Pistons do it is it cannot be done. Pistons can't rebuild like any other team. They have to rebuild the Pistons way. For one reason, if you're the worst team for the past 4 years, and you're in the top 3, how many times of lottery picking? That says a lot. That says that the deck is stacked against you. So I'm not going to even throw in there. It's not a Detroit is not considerable location or a place of where people want to play. I get that, but that's really not the case. What's the case is, what do you have to build off with? Your main guy, your best player, as the consensus poll of the media would say is Cade, right? Your best player. How often was Cade available in what is his 4th year? How many seasons have you played a full season? Go ahead and say his load management, include all of that. Go ahead and say his injuries. Go ahead and say, put everything in. How many seasons since he's been here played a full year? And he's your best player. That's the equivalent of having Blake Griffin. It's the self-same thing. It's the equivalent of having Blake Griffin. It can get you to the playoffs, but you have to surround it around unhealthy or spot in, spot out Blake Griffin. At the same time, the fans is also asking Troy Weaver to go get Levine, which is another Blake Griffin. They asked him to go get another player, which is Blake Griffin. Now, here's the solution. Here is my solution to the turnaround. It takes 1 off season. It is 3 players. 3 players, and the Pistons will turn the season around. Of course, it also includes the re-signing of Fontecchio, and possibly, if the contract could be reasonable, re-sign back Wiseman. This is without trading Cade. This is without trading Ivy. It's without trading Asar, Duran, Stewart, Sasser. This is without trading them. All right, here you go with this. You get one free agent signing, one trade, or possibly two trades. But I'm going to say one trade. One signing, one free agent signing, one trade. Okay. Marketing, I think that's how you pronounce the name. If I butchered his name, forgive me. That's the trade. One signing is Miles Bridges. The reason why Troy Weaver and them gets let's start with Troy Weaver why he gets the benefit of the doubt for my what I mean by the benefit that he should go into this offseason being able to pick this be a part of the process, the continuous process of building, being allowed to be the general manager. That is, what did he have to build off with? All right. Now let's skip over to Monty Williams. Here's the reason why I wouldn't fire Monty Williams. This is Monty Williams' first year with a product that is nowhere near. Okay, I will fire Monty Williams if Cade was healthy the full year. If Cade was healthy the full year, I will fire Monty Williams. I will fire Troy Weaver if Cade was healthy the full year, or since a full year since Troy Weaver was here. I will fire her from that reason. Outside of that, I cannot fire him. Is it okay to say? Is it clear to say that that Troy Weaver got it right when he picked Cade Cunningham? Okay, you could have Evan Mobley, you could have Jalen Green, you could have maybe a couple other players in place of Cade. Did Troy Weaver get it right by drafting Cade? If you guys say yes, if Cade hasn't been healthy for one season up under Troy Weaver should not be fired. If he has been healthy a full year, Troy Weaver deserves to be fired. Why I say that? How can you build if you can't build off your best or your most reliable, dependable, you can say your best asset? How can you establish something? You got to go around it. All right, if you go around it, you're only gonna go so far because you're trying to find another piece that can hold up until your main piece get there. Then at the same time, you got to take that new piece that you formed around and to incorporate it with your main piece and get those to gel together, right? All right. If that's impossible, if that's not being done, not impossible. If that's not being done, how can you fire Troy Weaver? How can you fire Monty Williams? There is nothing here. I'm not talking about outside talent. Now, somebody will say, well, OKC, Orlando, Houston. If you notice in the past 4 years that the Pistons have been historically bad, those teams also have been in that, whatever, you could say they're OKC, Orlando, and maybe Toronto is doing a turnaround. But in those 3 years that they was rebuilding, they had all-stars that they can trade to get better assets. At the same time, they also was picking in the top 3. Those 3 teams was also picking in the top 3 of their, their bad seasons, if you will. OKC, they got Paulo Banchero. All right. Let's see. Orlando. No, not OKC. Orlando got Banchero. OKC was able to get Holmgren. And let's see. With Houston, I want to say they was able to get Jabari Smith. Say what you will about Jabari, they was in the top 3. So what I'm saying about this, the Pistons was in the last 4 years, they was in the top 3 one time. So if you don't hit on your Holmgren was their first pick, Banchero was their first pick, and I don't know Houston's who their first pick was. I want to let's say it was. You could say Jabari or you could say Jalen Green, either one. Yet either one of them is not their main guy. somebody else is their main guy. I'm drawing a blank. Maybe it's Van Fleet. I don't know who their main guy is. Nonetheless, that's what the point of what I'm saying. Pistons' main guy is unavailable. That's not me slighting him. That's not me demanding them to trade him. He has not played a full season out of 4 years. All right, so OKC has assets on top of assets because they had all stars on top of all stars. They had the ability to get this, to get that, to get that. Okay, if you can trade for Paul George and you flip that Paul George to more draft picks, and then you also was able to get, let's say, Harden, then you're able to change that. Westbrook, you're able to get rid of that. You see what I'm saying? The Pistons, Joe Dumars situation, out of that, the only piece that's supposed to have been that type of asset to get them collect multiple picks down the road, if they was going to decide to move on from that player, would have been a Darko pick. Outside of that, what can the Pistons have? What could they have done? They was botched out of getting the top five in the lottery. They would end up getting 9, 9, 9. It's interesting how the Pistons was getting that when it, from Rodney White all the way down. They was getting Greg Monroe, Andre Drummond. They was getting pick 9, 9, 9, 9, right? So they wasn't able to get in the top five or the top three. They wasn't able to get up there to get the top talents, such as OKC, Houston, and Orlando. Now, for all the gripe that the people give the Pistons, they say the front management and even the head coach, you guys I haven't heard now one outlet, sports outlet or media outlet, can even give that consideration. If you're not able to pick the top pick of the litter, you have to do what you have to do, right? If you're able to pick the top pick, that top pick player has to play. Is it clear to say that Cade Cunningham is a top pick player? All right, who would you prefer to have had in that draft? If Cade is healthy, Mobley is healthy, Green is healthy, or any other person that was in that draft, who would you have preferred to have had? The consensus will still say Cade. But if Cade hasn't played a full year to see what, they don't even know what Cade can do to even bring in complementary pieces to make his game that much easier. He's not there enough. So they have to build around him, which was the case was with the likes of Ivy. You got to go around him. You got to go. If Cade was on the court, let's say first year. Well, I can't say the first year. That was, I think that was who was that? What was his number? What was his name? Grant, Jeremy Grant. So he could push that to the side. His second year, where was he? No show, right? Third year, where was he at? No show. Now we're going into his fourth year? If this is not his fourth year, he's still a no show. So they have talent on the fly with the speculation based upon the limited amount of time that Cade been on the court, and they was able to try to, I don't know, pull some talent together around him or some players around him to complement him. And if Cade is not healthy, you have to move that for something else to put you in a position to be in this position now. If they'd have kept on to if they kept the likes of Bogdanovich, right? They weren't able to get what's his name, Evan Fournier. He is able to give you a jackpot in using, you can either trade it as a possible piece, or you can, I think they could cut ties with him and they can use the extra, I believe, 18 million. That's where you can possibly make a trade for a player that's unloading. Now, the wishful thinking, of course, a person may say, you know, George. I'm not a Paul George fan per se. I'm not a fan of any player that is an all-star at this point. I'm not really. I really don't care for that. I Give me a player such as Miles Bridges, even with his off the court situation. I don't want Tobias Harris. Give me the gentleman from Utah, Lauri Markkanen, and Miles Bridges, and give me my top pick in the draft. If you don't give me my top pick, give me the second overall pick. The Pistons shouldn't get no lower than either number one or number two. With that being said, give me those two and watch Troy Weaver also get back into the lottery again with another pick. I'm possibly looking. I may do one or two things: bring Ivy off the bench, or possibly trade him. I'll approach him this offseason, and of course, I give him the assessment. Okay, what can he do to improve his game? Or overall, am I looking at his overall? I'm evaluating how have he improved from year one, year two, and now this year three? Have he improved? I gave him something to work on. Did he improve it? Or is he the same player? He's still the same player. He's still the same player. So right now he's a bench player for me, or he's a trade piece. With the likes of Duran has improved his game. Stewart has improved his game. I could keep both of them. Sasser's first year, Sarge's first year, I can't say they're pretty much incomplete. But Jaden Ivey, he's either coming off my bench or I'm trading him. And if I'm trading him, if I can possibly go to a team such as San Antonio, and maybe we can get a swapping of the one of the lottery picks for Ivy. And I may even throw some cash towards them so they can go ahead and they're going to build around Wembanyama with these players. They're going to build around them, and plus they have 2 lottery picks. They're going to build around that. They're not. Once again, that's my point. Even if you were to look at San Antonio's rebuild, in the past couple of years, they have been just as bad as the Pistons. I don't know if they get the slack that, or do they get the bypass? Not bypass. Do they get the, I guess you could say bypass. They can bypass. I'm thinking that they can get a pass because they have Wembanyama. The only thing about that is how they got him. Once again, Detroit is right there, and you end up with the 5th pick. That's my point. In the past 4 years, OKC, Orlando, Houston, and even now San Antonio has been historically as bad as the Pistons. Yet at the same time, they're able to pick in the top 3. None of them are getting the 5th pick. Fifth. None of them are getting that. They're getting the top pick. You can't tell me it's sliding towards the Pistons. So with that said, the Pistons have to do it the Pistons way. And every time the Pistons do it the Pistons way, the league tried to alter that by making making new rules, whatever the case may be. You can't do it. You can't allow the Pistons to win because Detroit they're going to redefine it again, and they're doing it now. They're just one off season away. This off season away. This is not a make and break off season for Troy Weaver and them. Yet at the same time, I would say if they make these 3 moves, even if they get slighted and they say they end up with the 6th overall lottery pick, if they make these 3 moves, they'll be okay.